Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. This is our sixth class on Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas, so we're going to have a discussion. We're starting the second Vilas today, which is all about Diksha. So let me just share that on the screen with everybody. And normally every Vilas starts out with a sloka in praise of Lord Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So first one, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my grand spiritual master. Now, once again, we discussed this in the last session, that Gopal Bhatta Goswami is the person who's writing this book, Hari Bhakti Vilas. The book was ordered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to be written. He ordered Sanatana Goswami to write the book about Vaishnava Anustanam, or Vaishnava behavior for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Sanatana Goswami got Gopal Bhatta Goswami to collect from many, many scriptures, pramanas, and different quotes, and they put them together into Hari Bhakti Vilas. Then Sanatana Goswami wrote a commentary called Digdarshini Tika on that, so that we can understand the exact proper understanding of all of the quotes from the different shastras. So here again is a sloka or verse by Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who's the author of the Mula text, of the original text, and not the commentary. And he is referring to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, as his grand spiritual master, or Parama Guru. So we mentioned before last time that he had also said this. Some people believe that Gopal Bhatta is the direct disciple of Lord Chaitanya. But in fact, from his own words, we can understand that he's not the direct disciple, but Lord Chaitanya considered Lord Chaitanya as his Parama Guru, his grand spiritual master. So who is Gopal Bhatta's spiritual master? We believe it is Prabodhananda Saraswati, who is his uncle, who is a sannyasin, who was also from South India. They were both from the town of Srirangam in South India, which is the center of Vaishnavism in South India, especially for the Sri Vaishnavas, like the Vatican of Sri Vaishnavism. So here he offers his, yeah, go ahead.
If he has the name Saraswati, then would that not mean that he is a Advaitin sannyasi?
A Dasanami sannyasi, yeah. So in the system, according to Adi Shankara, of sannyas involves 10 names, or 10 titles that are added. Giri, Parvata, Aranya, Saraswati, Giri, Parvata. There's a few more. There are 10 names, and therefore the system is called Dasanami sannyasis. So the ones that have these 10 names are usually considered the Sri Vaishnava sannyasis don't have these names. Even though you have a person called Swami Vishwananda today who thinks that he's a Sri Vaishnava, he doesn't have a name. Vishva Ananda would not be a name of a Sri Vaishnava sannyasi, right? So, but however, there are some people who are from other Vaishnava sampradayas who have taken sannyas from an Ekadandi sannyasi. The Sri Vaishnavas take sannyasa from Tridandis, and they have a different system of naming and titles. But the Ekadandi sannyasis all have used these Dasnami titles, these 10 names. So we have, for instance, Madhvas. All the Madhva sannyasis are descended from Madhvacharya, and Madhvacharya's name was Ananda Tirtha. Tirtha is also one of these titles, 10 Dasanami titles. And because Ananda Tirtha was a disciple of Purna Preksha Tirtha, his guru was Purna Preksha Tirtha. He was Purna Pragya, Purna Pragya Tirtha. Purna Preksha or Purna Pragya Tirtha was his. Purna Pragya was his name, and Purna Preksha Tirtha was his guru's name. Anyway, Tirtha, all of the Madhva sannyasins all have the name Tirtha. It's interesting to note that Chaitanya, the title Chaitanya is actually a brahmachari title, and Prabhupada explains this in some place in Chaitanya Charamrita. We can look it up later and we can find out. And actually, Chaitanya should have changed his name to Bharati, okay, because he took sannyas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas from a person called Keshava Bharati. So being the sannyas disciple of a Bharati means that you are also a Bharati. So he should have, his name was Krishna Chaitanya as a brahmachari. He could have called himself Krishna Chaitanya Bharati or Krishna Bharati or something like that. But instead he kept his name out of humility. He kept his brahmachari name as Krishna Chaitanya. So he was known as Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And in his youth, he was, of course, called by the name Nimai because he was born under a neem tree. And he was also given the title of a Pandit because he was a great Sanskrit scholar and grammarian. And he opened his own school and taught Sanskrit grammar. So he was called Nimai Pandit. And then after initiation, Krishna Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And after sannyas initiation, again, retained the same name, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So here, Prabodhananda Saraswati is normally if he had taken sannyas in South India, in a Sri Vaishnava system, he wouldn't have been called Prabodhananda Saraswati. He would have had some other title or some other name, sannyas name. So it indicates that Prabodhananda Saraswati probably took sannyas after he came to North India also and became a Gaudiya Vaishnava. So the Gaudiya Vaishnavas also still, they tend to take these names also like that. There are some other, in the Gaudiya Math and ISKCON, they have some other naming conventions for their sannyasis, but they also tend to also add the honorific titles of the Dasanamis. So they're that. So we have Gaudiya Vaishnavas, sannyasis, we have Madhva Vaishnava sannyasis, and they are, although they are Vaishnavas, still they do retain sometimes the Dasanami names. So that's interesting. That's an aside. Okay. So in the second line, he uses the term Jagat Guru, Jagat Gurum. Jagat, of course, means the world, and Guru means teacher. So he mentions that Sri Krishna Chaitanya is, for him, understood to be the world teacher or the Jagat Guru, the teacher of everyone. And he offers his obeisances to his grand spiritual master. Simply by his mercy, even an insignificant dog can cross beyond the ocean, the great ocean. So dogs are very famous for not being able to swim very fast. There's a stroke in swimming called the dog paddle. So the dog doesn't actually swim very fast. You never would see a dog win a swimming race, but they can swim. So his idea is that we are very insignificant, and that we have to cross a great ocean, but we are just like dogs doing the dog paddle. And so a person doing a dog paddle trying to get across the ocean, that's almost impossible. But with the grace of his grand spiritual master, who is also considered by Gaudiya Vaishnavas to be an incarnation of Lord Krishna himself, by the grace of Lord Krishna himself in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one can cross the great ocean of material existence, the ocean of samsara or birth and death. Although I'm very insignificant, I am confident that I will be able to write this chapter by his mercy. Okay, so in the beginning of each chapter, he just gives he prays to be able to finish the chapter correctly. As we saw in the first lesson when we read from Chaitanya Charitamrita about the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to write Hari Bhakti Vilas, Lord Chaitanya himself blessed Sanatana Goswami that you will be able to write this book, and that everything that you write will be perfect. That Krishna within your heart will reveal to you the realization of all these issues. So what are the issues of Hari Bhakti Vilas? The issues are Vaishnava Anusthanam, how Gaudiya Vaishnavas should live their lives, do their daily and monthly and different activities, and what rituals and what practices they should perform, and also the doctrines behind those practices. So that is a very big encyclopedic subject. So Hari Bhakti Vilas is actually a very huge book. It's divided up into 20 chapters called Vilasas. The word Vilas means pleasure. So each one of them is a pleasure. The first chapter, which we just did, involves seeking a guru, finding a spiritual teacher, what you should look for, what in the qualifications of a spiritual teacher. You should look into yourself and also examine your own self and see if you are a qualified student, and how to test the teacher, how the teacher tests the students, different mantras that the teacher might give initiation to the student. And now we come to the point of the second vilas. The second vilas is about diksha, or is about the actual initiation into these spiritual mantras by the teacher of the student, from a qualified teacher to a qualified student, and the initiation process. So the second text says, Ata diksha vidihi. So the vidi is like a prayoga. Vidi means a process, the actual process of giving the initiation. So he says right off the bat, now I shall describe the process of initiation as it was mentioned in the book Kramadipika, which is composed by Sri Keshavacharya. Without first being initiated, no one is qualified to worship his beloved Lord. So, a couple of things about this sloka. First, he says very clearly that the information I'm going to give about diksha, the actual process of diksha, of how to do the initiation, I'm taking from another book called Kramadipika. This book, Kramadipika, is a textbook which was written by an acharya called Keshavacharya, and Keshavacharya is also known as Sri Keshava Kashmiri. And Keshava Kashmiri is an Nimbarkacharya, and so all of these things that in Hari Bhakti Vilasa that come from Kramadipika, they are also applicable to the Nimbarka Sampradaya. So Nimbarka Sampradaya, they also worship Radha Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, and they also worship. We're going to. If anybody wants to jump in at any time and make a question or a comment, you can just unmute and do that. So we're just beginning Vilas number 2, which is of Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is about diksha, and so this second verse is explaining that Keshava, he's going to, Gopalbhata Goswami and Sanatana Goswami are going to give us the process of diksha as given in Kramadipika, written by Keshava Kashmiri Bhatta, or here known as Keshavacharya. And the point in this second verse here is that he's saying that the word here is given vina, but in Sanskrit it's actually vina, but because probably this book was transliterated from a text in Bengali script, and therefore they've written vina instead of vina, because V and V is the same in Bengali script. So vina diksham, right? So without, and it says na adhikara, so you don't have any qualification to do puja or to worship the Lord without having diksha. So one should first of all take diksha. After we go through the second vilas on diksha, then in the third vilas, it'll be stated that now that you have diksha, now you can perform actual ritualistic worship of the Lord and the deity. So that's very, very, very clearly in the beginning it's stated, without getting diksha, one isn't qualified. One doesn't have the qualification to perform worship of the Lord. And now why is that? Is that basically it's very practical, that before you get diksha, you don't have the mantra. You don't have the diksha mantra, which is given to you, which is the mula mantra, or the essential mantra, the root mantra for worshiping the deity. So we spoke about in the previous vilas, we spoke about different mantras that could be given, and some mantras of Vishnu were explained, some mantras of Narasimha, some mantras of Rama, and then also the Gopal mantra, the 18-syllable Gopal mantra, which is mostly talked about in this Karma Dipika, and therefore it's going to be very prominent in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. So continuing on to the next slokas, right? Acceptance of initiation is internal. So the absolute necessity for taking initiation is going to be spoken about here. So just as a Brahmin boy is not qualified to perform his occupational duties and study of the Vedas, if he is not initiated, so one who has not taken initiation is not eligible to chant transcendental mantras and worship the Supreme Lord. By accepting initiation into the chanting of the Vishnu mantras, one makes himself worthy of being praised even by Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is considered to be a Mahajan, a great Vaishnava, the greatest of Vaishnavas. So if he's praising you, it means that you're certainly praiseworthy. And so by taking initiation into these different Vishnu mantras, or specifically into the Gopal mantra, then one is going to become praiseworthy like that. It's going to become a Vaishnava by taking initiation. As one cannot separate himself from his worship of the Supreme Lord, so he cannot separate himself from accepting initiation. So this is just reiterating what we heard in the last verse, right? These two verses are just is explaining that you actually have to take initiation. So then in the 5th verse, we're talking about a discussion between Brahma and Narada that comes in a section on the glories of Kartik month in Skanda Purana. It says that those who have not taken initiation from a spiritual master according to the prescribed rules and regulations, and who have not worshipped the Supreme Lord Janardana, are as good as animals because their lives are spent uselessly. This statement confirms that initiation is an internal function. So it's going to be reiterated here in Hari Bhakti Vilasa that there's a possibility for a person to fall down into the animal species of life in his next birth if he doesn't take initiation. So initiation is important so that we can worship the deity, so that we can perform ritualistic Vaishnava worship of deities, so that we can also meditate upon that holy mantra and use that holy mantra for our realization. But it's also important. It's also important to save us from falling down into the lower species of life in the next life. So, text 6 in the Vishnu Yamala, which is another Agama book or tantric book, Vaishnava tantric book. In the conversation between Rukmangada and Mohini, the following statement is found. O beautiful one, all activities performed by an uninitiated person are useless. Not only that, after death, such a person receives the body of an animal. Now, that's not necessarily true, okay? But after we have this human form of life, if we waste this human form of life, which is a body in which we can actually advance in spiritual life, right? Up until this time, we've just been working our karma out, going from stage to stage in the animal kingdom, coming up to the human form of life. And the human form of life is the first one where we can actually engage in trying to understand about spiritual matters. That's why the Brahma Sutras start off by saying, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. So that's in the very beginning of the Brahma Sutras. It says, now that you're a human being and you can read these words, this sutra, now is the time to dedicate yourself to understanding spiritual matters like that. There are other meanings for the word now in the first Brahma Sutra, but we don't need to go into them here. The point being that in the human form of life, we have the ability, we have the intelligence to take to spiritual life and try to understand who we are, who God is, what is our purpose in life. If we waste that, then the system is that Krishna sometimes throws us down into a lower form of life for a little bit more punishment till we come up again to the human form of life where we can again have that chance. So what he's saying here is you're a human being, you should take the spiritual life, and in the beginning of spiritual life, one should find a spiritual master and one should get initiated. And this is like the real beginning of spiritual life. And if you do that, then again, it's being saying here that if you don't do that, maybe you'll take birth as an animal in your next life. So the point is, we shouldn't dwell upon this thing. Oh, I have to get initiated, otherwise I'll become an animal in my next life. We should take it very seriously and look for a spiritual master to take initiation from. Okay, so Vinachara is making a comment here that nowadays in ISKCON it's said that by many that anyone can worship Gaunitai, and therefore many without initiation and maybe only with first initiation take the worship of deities at home. Even Srila Prabhupada one time wanted to distribute Gaunitai dolls freely to anyone because it is said they need only to be worshipped by Hare Krishna mantra. Yeah, sure. You can worship them with Hare Krishna mantra. You can worship anybody with Hare Krishna mantra, any form of Vishnu. If you want to worship the Lord, you can worship him by chanting the holy name. And chanting the holy name, according to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and according to all Vaishnavism, chanting of the holy name is completely free. We saw in the previous Vilasa that it said there was a quote from the Agastya Samhita where it said that Rama mantras are so powerful that you don't even need initiation for them. And it even said for Gopal mantra, you don't even need initiation. It's a very powerful mantra. Now, the system is that you should take initiation and you should follow the rules and regulations, even with Rama mantras or even with Gopal mantra like that. But Prabhupada also uses that quote, as we saw in Chaitanya Charitamrita, to justify the fact that the Lord's names can be freely chanted, and we can worship the Lord by chanting His name, and especially in this Kali Yuga, where it's said that the Yuga Dharma for this age is the chanting of the holy names, and we have in Navada Bhakti, if we're following Bhakti Yoga, in Bhakti Yoga. Yeah, you missed that class. Well, you can go back and watch that class, Govindacharya. The class, there was actually a sloka that did say that the Gopal mantra is so powerful that it works even if somebody's not initiated. But normally, we want people to take initiation. And we can also note that even in ISKCON, they give initiation of even the Hare Krishna mantra, which is Harinam. So if there's absolutely no need for initiation, then why give initiation for that? Then it seems silly if there's no need for initiation, then why give initiation into it? And the reason is that we have to find a proper spiritual teacher, and we have to connect with that spiritual teacher, and the connection is initiation, so that we are not simply chanting with a misunderstanding of the meaning of the mantra or a wrong mantra. So we need a spiritual guide, and the spiritual guide is going to guide us. And the beginning of our spiritual journey is initiation. So this idea of worshiping the deity before getting initiated is there for some people in ISKCON. But the fact is that there are people worshiping Gaunitai deities or in temples in ISKCON, and they worship them with mula mantras. They worship them with mantras that they're initiated into. And if you want to simply have some Gaunitai deities and just chant Hare Krishna in front of them, that's nice. But you can't actually fully engage in the proper worship of the deity of Gaunitai without knowing the mula mantras for Gaunitai, which come in initiation. So we're not discouraging people from taking initiation. If people don't want to take initiation, I don't know what their reason would be. It's like saying, I want to drive a car on the freeway, but I don't want to learn how to drive properly. I just will wing it. I'll get in and I'll just imitate what other people are doing. But I don't want to learn the proper rules of the road, and I don't want to follow all these things. Yeah, eventually you'll get pulled over by the police and you'll be fined, for not driving with a license. So this initiation is like a license. You follow the instructions of the spiritual master, and the spiritual master is going to initiate you at a certain point. Very early on in spiritual life, he's going to initiate you. And first of all, there's going to be some testing of the spiritual master and the disciple, which we talked about in the previous classes in the last one. So the spiritual master tests the student, and the student tests the spiritual teacher. So they mutually accept each other, and at that time, initiation is given like that. And the initiation is like your learner's permit. It's like your first driver's license. They're not saying you're perfect. You're not a perfect driver. You're beginning to learn at that point seriously about Vaishnavism. So here in Vishnu Yamala, just to continue on a little bit, in the seventh verse here, it says, if the spiritual master gives initiation to unqualified candidates, either out of affection or out of greed, right? Sometimes the guru might really like somebody, but that person is unqualified. And he gives them initiation just because he likes him, but without seeing the fact that he's not qualified for initiation. Or out of greed, guru might want to get lots and lots of disciples, and especially rich disciples who can supply a lot of donations to the guru. Maybe even he wants to build some nice temple, or he wants to do some great spiritual works, and he requires a lot of donations from his disciples, and he feels, okay, let me give them initiation just because they're giving me money. This is not a very good idea, and so Hari Bhakti Vilasa is going to speak against that. He says, he and his disciple become the target of the curses of the demigods, of the devatas, as well as the predominating deity of the mantra that they chant, meaning Lord Krishna himself. Lord Krishna is the predominating deity of the Gopal mantra, or Lord Vishnu for some other mantras, Narasimha, Rama, whoever is the predominating deity of that mantra that he took initiation into. If the guru initiates unqualified candidates. So Prabhupada always used to insist that people should be chanting and they should be following the rules and regulations for 6 months. Then they should get recommended by a spiritual authority, the temple president or somebody in the temple. And then after that, Prabhupada would agree to initiate them. And then after some more qualifications, about for another 6 months or a year, they would recommend them for actual Vaishnava Diksha, which means the Gopal Mantra Diksha, like that. So we shouldn't be confused here that in ISKCON they have a system of 2 Dikshas. They have the Harinam Diksha, and as we said, the Harinam works without even Diksha, but the approach to the spiritual master and becoming serious and starting spiritual life, that is the process of taking the first stage of Diksha. That's not mentioned here because historically and traditionally in all the sampradayas, including Gaudiya Sampradaya, there was no first initiation. There was only just one initiation, and that's what's being spoken of here in the second Vilas. That is the initiation with the main mantra for the Gaudiya Sampradaya, which is the Gopal mantra. And as I also said, it's also a very important mantra for Nimbarka Sampradaya because it comes in their book, Pramadipika. So we're going to read some more about that. So here is just warning again that we should remember what we learned in the first Vilas, that the guru and the disciple test each other. If the disciple and guru test each other, and a guru accepts, the teacher accepts the student and accepts to teach him, but if the student doesn't come up to a certain level of the guru's expectation, then the guru shouldn't initiate him, because otherwise, it says he'll be cursed by the deity of the mantra, which means Lord Krishna, and also the other devatas. And the guru also shouldn't act in this way. He shouldn't just hand out initiation out of affection or out of greed. So that's the point given here. And we have another book called Vishnu Rahasya. The word Rahasya means secret. So it's another Agama type book, a book about Vaishnavism. So, verse 8, simply by worshipping the Supreme Lord, one attains extraordinary results. What then is the need of taking initiation from a spiritual master? It's a good question. So to answer this, it is said, if one worships Lord Hari without first learning the rules and regulations of worship that are laid down by the previous Mahajans from one spiritual master, he attains only 1/100th part of the result of his worship. If one worships the Lord under the guidance of his spiritual master, he attains a complete result. So this again is another answer to that question by Govindachari. Yes, people can just go and get some Gaudintai deities and they can chant Hare Krishna and they can forget about everything else and not endeavor to take proper initiation or to learn the proper system of worship. They can do that. What kind of result do they get? Yes, they get a result. They get a good result, but they get only 1/100th part of the result of his worship, that then, according to this verse, right, then they would if they actually studied under the guidance of the guru, because the spiritual master is going to tell them, the spiritual master is not going to encourage them not to take initiation. He's going to say, no, you should come up to the standard that I'm setting and you should take initiation, and then I will teach you the proper methods of doing deity worship. So here next in verses 9 and 10, we start this Diksha Mahatmyam. So Mahatmyam means the glories of. So it's going to glorify, these verses are going to glorify the meaning of Diksha, what Diksha actually means. So this is actually like a definition of Diksha. So the word Diksha is made of two syllables, Di and Ksha. So Di means Diyate, which means to give, and Ksha means Kshiyate, means to destroy. So something is given and something's destroyed. The divine knowledge is given in the form of the mantra, and what that does is it destroys our sin. So Divya Jnanam Yuto Dadyat, it's a very famous verse. Now everybody should know this verse. Kuryat Papasya Sankshayam. Tasmat Diksheti Saprokta Deshikais Tatvako Videhi. Right. So the translation given here is that Diksha is the process by which one can awaken his transcendental knowledge and vanquish all reactions to sinful activities performed in the past. A person who's expert in the study of the scriptures knows this process to be Diksha. There's another saying, there's another verse, I haven't got it exactly, but in Pancharatra, Diyate Muktiranaya Kshiyate Papanasanam. So Diyate means that the liberation is given by the process of Diksha and sins are destroyed. So it is the duty of every human being to surrender to a bona fide spiritual master while offering him everything, including one's body, mind, and intelligence. One should take Vaishnava initiation from him. So here not only is it glorifying Diksha, but it's saying it's a must. Diksha is a must that every human being should find a bona fide spiritual master or spiritual teacher, as was stated there in the first Vilasa. And there can be more than one spiritual teacher, but for every person, there's just one person who gives them the Diksha. So that person who becomes more prominent in a person's life, spiritual life, in the beginning of his spiritual life, will give him initiation. And initiation is taken one time from that person. And then later on, of course, he may have some other gurus. Now, we were discussing also, there was this idea that came up by some people that there's an Udarika guru and an Upakarika guru. So this came up and we discussed it with Dr. Alwar in Mysore in one of our last classes on Mumukshapati, for those people who are following that one. And some people have been saying in ISKCON, it's a slightly soft Ritvic idea, that Prabhupada is the guru who actually liberates everybody, and all these other people coming after Prabhupada, they're simply bringing people to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada is saving them, just like in Christian religion, people say, oh, everybody should surrender to Jesus, and the present people or Pope or cardinals or whoever, whatever priest that you're learning from, is really just connecting you with Jesus, and Jesus is the one who saves, right? So in this way, this is sort of a soft Ritvikism idea that Prabhupada is the one who saves. And I read yesterday, I was reading Rabindra Swarup's reply to that, which was a very interesting reply. He said, well, if such an idea actually exists, right? They were saying that this idea exists in the Sri Sampradaya. I'm going to tell you why it doesn't. But he said, if something like this does actually exist, it's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who would be the Udaraka, the person lifting everyone up, and everybody, all the other acharyas coming after him would be because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So all the others coming after would be upakarakas or just helpers, like that. So this idea of upakaraka is sort of like the idea that the Ritviks, the people who follow Ritvik Bhadra, and we could note that this idea of hard Ritvikism or soft Ritvikism is really only there in ISKCON. It's not there in any other place. So there are several reasons for that. We don't want to get into it. But the point is, we asked this to Dr. Alwar the other day, is this actually stated in the Sri Sampradaya? Do people follow this Udarika, Upakarika type of idea? And he said, yes, there are ideas of Udarika and Upakarika. Now, to properly understand this, we have to understand the Lord is actually Lord Vishnu himself, or Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is the one who can give liberation. Janardana can give liberation, the Lord. Nobody else can actually give liberation from this material bondage. Nobody can give prema, nobody can give moksha. Only the Lord can give those things, right? So, when I say the Lord, for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that can mean Lord Krishna or Radha Krishna, as together, the divine couple, the concept of the Supreme Godhead. So liberation can only be given by them. So even a guru who's an ordinary individual jiva, he doesn't actually give moksha. He doesn't actually give moksha. Now, he may recommend you to Radha, to Krishna, to get moksha or to get prema. He may recommend, and his recommendation may be accepted by the Supreme Lord. But the person who bestows liberation, the person who bestows moksha, is the Supreme Godhead, Krishna, Radha Krishna. So the idea that the guru is lifting somebody up. Yes, okay, the guru is lifting somebody up, but actually it's God who's lifting somebody up. In the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, the person who gives the Astakshara mantra, it's very, very clear in the books called Rahasya Granthas in the Sri Sampradaya, that the person who gives the Astakshara mantra or the Diksha mantra, right, in terms of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, that would be the person who gives the Gopala mantra to somebody in initiation. That person is the main guru who is lifting people up. Now, sometimes that guru cannot give the person all the instructions that he needs. He may not be able to explain the full meaning of the mantra to him, or explain the purport of different shastras and different things that person should be studying as a Vaishnava. But he's able to start him off by giving him the deity. He's actually giving him a connection to God through God's holy name in the form of the mantras. So the Gopal mantra, the other Vishnu mantras, they are non-different from Gopal or from Krishna or from Vishnu. They're non-different. So those mantras are the things, the deity, they are the deity themselves and non-different from the deity, and they're the things which are raising us up, which are bringing us up and giving us liberation, giving us prema. So the guru who gives you that is the Udaraka guru. He's raising you up. Another guru might teach you the Bhagavad Gita, might teach you the Bhagavatam, might teach the Ramayana to you, or in the case of Sri Vaishnava, the Prabandhas of the Alwars, whatever. There may be some other gurus who teach you other things, other subjects. Those gurus are called Upakaraka gurus, so they're helping the person who started you off and gave you the Astakshara mantra, or in this case, the Gopal mantra. That's the concept in the Sri Sampradaya. Not that Ramanuja is the only person who, Ramanuja was the Udaraka guru for his disciples that he gave the Tira mantra to. Other people who taught his disciples were Upakaraka gurus for them. So there's the main guru and the other. So in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, it's very clear. The main guru is the guru who gives the Astakshara mantra. Now, in terms of Gaudiya Sampradaya, that would be the person who gives the Gopal mantra. Now, people may object and they may say, well, somebody gave me the Gopal mantra, but my main guru is Srila Prabhupada because I read all his books and I'm getting most of my shiksha, most of my understanding from Srila Prabhupada. I don't want to go into trying to legislate to people what their faith is, right? So if you have more faith in one guru than another guru, or you think that person is more your central guru in your life, that's completely up to you. That's your faith. I'm not going to tell you what your faith should be, right? But all I can tell you is that there's one guru which is more substantial in your life spiritually, and that guru is considered the Udaraka guru. The others are considered upakarakas or helpers. It doesn't mean that there's a system like Ritvikism where that person can be considered your Diksha guru. And this is the idea in ISKCON, or there are some branches of ISKCON or renegade branches of ISKCON that say, no, even the person who's a previous Acharya, but he had a very great effect, he had lots of books and he had many, many teachings, that person can also be your Diksha guru. No. It's very, very clear if you look at the history of Vaishnavism. I'll give this story again. I'll explain the story again, right? Ramanuja was in a Gurukula of a person who was not a Vaishnava. This person, Yadava Prakash, he was in the Gurukula of Yadava Prakash. He disagreed with the teacher on his philosophy. Yadava Prakash was a Beta Vadin, and we don't need to go into what that exactly means right now, but he was not particularly agreeing with Ramanuja. Ramanuja was not agreeing with his teacher in Gurukuls, so he left that Gurukul. Now, Yamunacharya was the head of all the Vaishnavas in Sri Rangam, and he saw Ramanuja was studying, and he knew that Ramanuja was very intelligent. He thought that Ramanuja would eventually become a Vaishnava. And when Ramanuja left the Gurukul of Yadava Prakash, that was the time that Yamunacharya sent somebody, one of his disciples, to get Ramanuja to bring him to Sri Rangam and to initiate him. He was going to initiate him. And also Ramanuja knew he was going to go to Sri Rangam and take initiation from Yamunacharya. Yeah. So both Ramanuja knew that he was going to take initiation from Yamunacharya, and Ramanuja knew that he was going to go to Sri Rangam, take initiation from Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya knew that he was coming and he was going to give him initiation. So it was all set up. Everybody had their expectations. Yamuna had the expectation that Ramanuja would come and he was going to give him initiation. Ramanuja had the expectation that he was going to go and take initiation from Yamunacharya, but it didn't happen. The reason it didn't happen is because Yamunacharya passed away on the way when Ramanuja was coming there. So when Ramanuja came, he saw actually, before the funeral, he saw the body of Yamunacharya lying there having just passed away. Now, Ramanuja could have said, Yamunacharya wanted me to come and take initiation, right? He was going to initiate me. He had accepted me. It's not that he didn't know me. It's not 10 years later. He had accepted me. He knew me. He had accepted me. He was going to give me initiation. So Ramanuja could have said, he's my Diksha Guru. But because the Diksha never happened, because Yamunacharya never gave him the mantra, never gave him the Diksha, Ramanuja didn't think, that person can be my guru, my Diksha Guru. He thought, I have to find a Diksha Guru. And in fact, he did take Diksha later on from Mahapurna, one of the disciples of Yamunacharya. So strictly speaking, we hear all the time that Ramanuja is a disciple of Yamunacharya. We hear that. People say that. Ramanuja followed his guru, Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya was a guru in a sense of Ramanuja. He was a Shiksha Guru, right? Ramanuja fulfilled many of the desires of Yamunacharya, and he also followed the teachings of Yamunacharya. That doesn't mean that Ramanuja ever claimed to be a Diksha disciple, a disciple that he got Diksha from Yamunacharya. Even though he could say, look, just a few hours before, he wanted to give me initiation, so I feel like I'm initiated by him. He knew me, I knew him, we accepted each other as guru and disciple, therefore I'm actually initiated by him. No, Ramanuja never claimed to be actually initiated by Yamunacharya. people say Yamunacharya was a great guru. He was the greatest guru for Ramanuja. But Ramanuja took diksha, proper diksha, formal diksha, formal initiation from one of Mahapurna, who was one of Yamunacharya's disciples. So that's very clear. There are other examples that we discussed we were discussing about mantras yesterday, and it was saying that you can get a mantra in a dream. There are some very exceptional examples where people were approached by Purva Acharyas, people who came before, or different personalities in a dream and given initiation. It's possible. Absolutely possible. We're not saying that's not possible. The story about Ramananda is that hundreds of years after Ramanuja, he had a dream, and Ramanuja branded him on the shoulders and gave him the mantras and initiated him in a dream. When he woke up, he had the symbols of conch and disc branded on his skin, and he knew the secret mantras. So nobody can refute that he took initiation from Ramanuja, even though Ramanuja had been hundreds of years dead. So this is possible. It is possible, but it's very, 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 very rare. In fact, I can count on one hand, or even a couple of fingers, how many times I've heard of this occurrence happening in Vaishnavism, in Vaishnav history and tradition. So it's not a thing that you can set up a system where you say to somebody, go to sleep and dream about Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's going to give you initiation and you're going to be his Diksha Guru, or even more strangely, that somehow or other I'm going to give you, the mantra, but somehow or other Prabhupada is the one who is your Diksha Guru. That's not going to happen. That doesn't happen in Gaudiya Vaishnava history, doesn't happen in any Vaishnava history. So that is only a theory that was cooked up by some people in ISKCON, and we shouldn't give it any sort of credence whatsoever, right? Okay, so the idea of a soft Ritvik, that's very hard Ritvikism. A soft Ritvik idea would be that although somebody else initiated me into the mantra, right, into the Gopal mantra or the Hare Krishna mantra, somehow or other, Prabhupada is my real guru who really gave it to me. Again, this is just to try to make people feel better that they didn't meet Prabhupada. They weren't around 40 years ago when Prabhupada was around. So, okay. So dismissing all of that stuff and getting back to the traditional and authentic Shastric understanding of what Diksha means in Hari Bhakti Vilas, all of these verses from different scriptures here are giving us the real pramana, or the real proof from different scriptures that Gaudiya Vaishnavas are supposed to follow, and everything else which doesn't fit with this is a speculation. It's a speculation. This is what the proof is. And this book was ordered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be written so that people would have a gold standard. They would have a standard understanding from the scriptures, and they wouldn't be misled by people cooking up Christian ideas or other crazy ideas about Guru Tattva and Diksha and all these things, and Ritvikism and all this nonsense. Okay, so to continue on, right? So here it's being said that you definitely should take formal initiation from a guru. And again, in Skanda Purana, another quote is being given in text 11. I'm sorry to go on about that whole thing at length, but the reason why I did was because there is so much misunderstanding today about it. And I'm very happy to talk to people about it at length some more. But really, what I'd like to do is I'd like to just present the reality, the real scriptures, and the real scriptural proofs about what initiation is, and then everybody will know what it is, and everything else isn't what it is. Everything else is what it isn't. And so all this Ritvikism, and that is what it isn't. So although people keep with this Udarika and Upakarika idea, they keep trying to push the idea of Ritvikism, right? But they don't understand the actual application of these terms, because even the term Ritvik is a term. right? In the Vedic civilization, they had Vedic sacrifices, and they had 4 priests: the Brahma, the Advaryu, the Hotri, and the Udgatri. There were these 4 main priests in a Vedic sacrifice, and each one of those priests has 4 helpers, and those helpers are called upakarakas, helpers, or also called ritviks, right? They're called ritviks, and even the priests themselves, those 4 priests, the Brahma priest is considered to be the head priest, and the other 3 priests are considered to be ritviks in the sense of helpers. Those helpers, the ritvik, the word ritvik comes from Sanskrit, and it means, the word ritu in Sanskrit means season. So a person who offers sacrifice at a particular time, in the proper season, is called a ritvik, right? That's the technical meaning of the word. But a ritvik is a very highly qualified person, and he knows his part to be played in the Vedic sacrifice, like that. So today, that's been misunderstood to be just any person with no qualification whatsoever, hardly any qualification whatsoever. But if he simply performs some simple ceremony and tells you that you're initiated by somebody else, the person who's actually qualified. So this is not at all the real understanding or original understanding of the word ritvik. So this whole idea is ritviks become somebody's a helper. We have a term in English called gopher. There's a little animal called a gopher, like that. But in English we say, if I ask you, if you're my helper, if I'm doing something and I ask you to go get this and go get that, go for this and go for that, you're my gopher. You're my helper. So this word gopher also means like a ritvik in English. Go for this and go for that. So if I tell somebody I'm cooking and I say, go get me the chilies, go get me the cumin, go get me the ghee, I need this and I need that, and please bring it to me. And I'm the actual chef. So that's the point. That's the point, is that the person who just goes and gets something has no real, he's not a chef. He's not the person who actually does the cooking, right? He's just a helper, right? So what they're trying to do is they're trying to say all these very highly qualified Vaishnavas who know lots of scripture, have taken initiation, have spent the majority of their life being Vaishnavas and worshiping the Lord in detail, and they understand deeply Krishna consciousness and Vaishnavism. These people are supposed to be put down to the level of simply somebody who just goes and gets something and brings it. So that's not correct. So, okay, so now we're continuing on with text 11. It's also a conversation between Narada and Brahma from Skanda Purana. And he says, those who have taken initiation, which destroys all of one's miseries, are far superior to ascetics, fruitive workers, or mental speculators. So people who are doing mystic yoga, people who are doing karma yoga, or people who are doing jnana yoga, these people who are bhakti yogis, if they're actually doing bhakti yoga, they'll take initiation, and therefore they'll be greater than the karmis, jnanis, and mystic yogis, right? So this is also understood very clearly in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, that people who do karma yoga, jnana yoga, or Astanga yoga, this mystic yoga, right? They are inferior to the bhakta, to the person who is devoted to the Supreme Lord Vishnu and who takes initiation and learns to worship properly according to scripture and tradition and his sampradaya, how to worship Lord Krishna. So continuing on from the Tattva Sagara, Sagara means the ocean of truth, the ocean of principles, right? It says, very interesting thing, when bell metal mixed with mercury, when it's mixed with bell metal when it's mixed with mercury is transformed into gold, a person, even though not golden pure, can be transformed into a brahmana or a dvija, right? Simply by the initiation process. And you can note here in the last line of the sloka, it says dvija tvam. He gets dvija tvam. He is reborn. He gets a second birth, a spiritual birth. So the second birth or spiritual birth is talking about the Upanayana ceremony, the Upanayana samskara, which is Vedic initiation. What we're talking about here is Vaishnava initiation, which is Pancharatric initiation, which is Tantric or Agamic initiation. It's not Vedic initiation. There's a difference between Vedic and Pancharatric. So that Vedic initiation is usually in the Varnashram system offered only to the male offspring of Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, which are called Traivarnikas. So those boys will go to the Gurukul and they will get this Vedic initiation of Upanayana, wearing the sacred thread and hearing the Gayatri mantra, the Savitri Gayatri mantra, or Brahma Gayatri. So they are considered then to be twice born. So twice born means their first birth is, of course, from their mother and father, and the second birth is from the Guru and the Vedas. Right? The Guru is the father and the Vedas are like the mother, like that. So the Gayatri mantra is like the mother. So in this way, the boy is born, twice born in a Vedic samskara or Vedic initiation, which is Upanayana. So just like that, he becomes a twice born, right? Born again. Similarly, the whole idea that the initiation of Vaishnavas, the Vaishnava initiation, the Pancharatric initiation, is also a process where he gets born again. He gets his first birth, of course, from his parents, and no matter what situation he was born into, maybe he was born a non-believer or a Muslim or in a different religion or in a very low caste, or maybe the person was born a different gender, as we saw. It was talking about in the first Vilasa, it was talking about the Guru should see if the person is a man or a woman or a transsexual. It said Sri, Pum, and Napumsaka. The Guru should know all these things. He should also know whether they're fat or thin, or old or young, or rich or poor. There's all these different things were mentioned that the Guru analyzes the person. But in all these cases, if the person is chaste and pious, chaste women and pious Sudras, it said in the previous Vilas. So these people can be initiated, no matter what other disqualification they have by birth or by their family. So they can be reborn again in the sense of taking Vaishnava initiation. And the example given here is an example that comes from the old days when people used to believe in alchemy. In alchemy, there was an idea that you could use mercury and you could take a base metal like bell metal and mix mercury with that, and somehow you could change that into gold. So we don't have to actually believe that, whether you could do that or not scientifically, that's not important. The point is that this is an analogy which is given to explain how a person becomes turned into a golden Vaishnava, a pure Vaishnava, from being born in a very low caste family, or in a, or as a foreigner, as a mlecha, as a chandala, or in, as a Shudra or a woman, or whatever is considered to be not have the qualification, for instance, for taking Vedic initiation. In Pancharatric initiation, all these people can be initiated, and they can immediately, by being initiated, they become immediately transformed, like bell metal with mercury, into gold. They get transferred into a pure Vaishnava. They become a pure Vaishnava by this process of initiation. So simply by this initiation process, we should understand that a person formally becomes a Vaishnava. Even before initiation, if a person is surrendered to the Lord and is worshipping the Lord, is chanting the holy names, he's considered to be a Vaishnava. But formally, when he takes initiation, at the time of initiation, he is considered a Vaishnava. So now, after explaining a little bit about the process of initiation, we're going to ask about when should such an initiation take place? What is the best time to do it? Are there good times to do initiation? Are there bad times when we should avoid giving the initiation ceremony? So we'll find from different scriptures it's explained. So here, text 13 to 15, Ata Diksha Kalaha. Kalaha means time. So what times are suitable for taking initiation? So in the Agamas, there are some statements here, and it says, by accepting initiation into a mantra in the month of March, April, one relieves distress, right? By accepting initiation in the months of April, May, one receives opulence. By accepting the initiation in the month of May, June, one meets with death. So probably not a good idea, right? May, June, right? By accepting initiation in the month of June, July, he loses his friends or relatives. Well, if your friends and relatives are not Vaishnavas, you're probably going to lose them anyway if you take initiation and become a Vaishnava, but that's another thing. By accepting initiation in the month of July, August, one meets with danger. By accepting initiation in the month of August, September, one loses his followers. Not exactly sure what the student would have followers. I don't know, material followers? I'm not sure. By accepting initiation in the month of September, October, one attains all auspiciousness. By accepting initiation in the month of October, November, one attains prosperity. By accepting initiation in the month of November, December, one attains good fortune. By accepting initiation in the month of December, January, one's knowledge becomes misguided. By accepting initiation in the month of January, February, one's intelligence is enhanced. And by accepting initiation in the month of February, March, one can bring everyone under his control. This is called Vasikarna, to control other people. This is the opinion of the Acharyas. Okay, so there are some things here which are quite materialistic, some fruits of taking initiation which are quite materialistic. This is not, as I said before, when we read Hari Bhakti Vilasa, there'll be some quotes from scriptures, and we have to take a lot of these quotes with a grain of salt, because that they are not, this is not the ultimate understanding. There's going to be many understandings given from the scriptures. At the end of the section is going to give the ultimate siddhanta, or the perfection of this understanding. So these are just some quotes. We can take note of these, but normally when we take spiritual initiation from a Vaishnava, we're not expecting all of these material results. So we don't really worry about these quotes too much. And we continue on. We get some more quotes here from the Agastya Samhita. Remember that Agastya Samhita, very much to do with the worship of Lord Ramachandra and Lord Rama, but here it's being quoted again. If one takes initiation in the month of July, August, one is sure to attain prosperity. If one takes initiation in the month of October, November, one attains knowledge. And if one takes initiation in the month of February, March, one attains prosperity. However, one should not take initiation in the added month, the extra month, called Purushottama Adhika Masa. Okay, so Adhika Masa, for those of you who are not too familiar with the lunar calendar or the Vedic calendar, is mostly lunar. And in a lunar calendar, there are 360 days in a year. So therefore, we know that the sun scientifically goes around the Earth goes around the sun 364 and a quarter days, or whatever it is. So there's an extra few days there, like 4 days. So those days add up. If you only have a year of 360, those days add up, and every couple of years, every 2.5 or 3 years, you're going to have an extra month. So we're used to the Gregorian calendar, the Western calendar, where we have an extra day every 4 years at the end of February. But in the Vedic civilization, what they do is, instead of having an extra day every 4 years, every 3 years or so, they have a shorter year, but they have every year, every 2 or 3 years, they have an extra month. That month is called like a leap month. It's like a leap month. Okay, so that leap month is called Purushottama Adhika Masa. Masa means month, right? It's called Adhik month. Some other people call it Mala month. It's considered a bad month for doing different ceremonies. Now, there are other scriptures that may say for Gaudiya Vaishnavas that doing certain things in that month is highly efficacious for your spiritual life, right? There might be some things like chanting or doing different rituals and things like that might be very, very good to do in that month. But here it's described specifically, and most other Vaishnavas actually don't do a lot of rituals in that month because they consider it to be a bad month, right? But here it specifically says in the second Vilasa of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, don't take initiation in Adhik Mas, right? So no matter what you hear from people in ISKCON or around ISKCON or whatever it is, they shouldn't be giving initiation or taking initiation in the month of Purushottam month, right? That's a rule. Now, again, this is maybe not the final siddhanta or the final understanding, like the previous ideas that we got about the different good and bad results we get from different months. We should continue on. Next, in text 17 to 19 from the Gautamiya Tantra, there's going to be some more explanation. So if one takes initiation into the Gopal mantra, again, the Gopal mantra that we're talking about is the 18-syllable Gopal mantra. In the month of March and April, all of his objectives in life will be obtained. If one takes initiation in April, May, he will attain opulence. In the month of May, June, he will meet with his death. So this is just reiterating the slokas that we got before from the Gautamiya Tantra. In June, July, he'll lose his friends. In the month of July, August, he'll enjoy a longer duration of life. In August, September, he'll lose his followers. In September, October, he'll attain opulence. In the month of October, November, he will attain the perfection of chanting his mantra. That's nice. And usually this also comes up. October, November is the month of Kartik, which is very important for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Although some other Vaishnavas make other months more important, and each month has its own specialities. But October, November, the Kartik month for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas is very, very important. And so therefore, what's talked about here is a good time to be initiated in Gaudiya Vaishnava would be in Kartik month. So in November, December, he will attain the same results, well, as in Kartik, I guess, so that's good. In the month of December, January, he'll be troubled by his enemies. In January, February, his intelligence will become enhanced. And in the month of February, March, all of his desires will be fulfilled, like that. We can also note for Sri Vaishnavas, anybody who knows a little bit about Sri Vaishnavas knows that there's this month called Margali month or Dhanurmasam. It's a Margashira. And Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, of months I am Marga. I am the month of Margashira. So Lord Krishna identifies himself with that month. It's a very holy month for other Vaishnavas, maybe more so than Kartik for Sri Vaishnavas, whereas Kartik is more important for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And so in that month, you notice that Sri Vaishnavas, they don't do any weddings. They don't do any auspicious ceremonies. They concentrate on meditating upon Krishna and the gopis in that month, because that is the month when the gopis worship Lord Krishna in order to get him as their husband in Vrindavan. So that's very important for Sri Vaishnavas, and that's why they concentrate during that month, which is going on right now for Sri Vaishnavas, right, in that mentality or thinking about how the gopis worship Krishna to get him as their husband. So again, at the end of this section this is again from Gautamiya Tantra, I believe, one is forbidden to take initiation in the added month called Purushottama Adhik Mas. So that's another statement against taking initiation in the leap month. Okay. All right. So continuing on, we have a conversation between Rupmangada and Mohini in Skanda Purana. And there's another confirmation here of how Kartik is a very good month to take initiation from. Those who take initiation, this is verse 20, those who take initiation in the month of Kartik are not born again in this material world. Well, that's nice. That means they go to moksha, they go to liberation. Therefore, with all endeavor, one should try to take initiation in the month of Kartik. So there's an actual recommendation for people from the Shastra, from the Skanda Purana, says try to take initiation in Kartik. That's a very good month. And continuing on with text 21, although there is a restriction regarding taking initiation in the month of March, April, it's not applicable to one who takes initiation into the chanting of the Gopal mantra. So if we look back here, March, April, it says March, April. Actually, from the Gautamiya Tantra, it was okay. It said the objectives will be taken, will be obtained. You'll get your objectives. But if we look back further to March, April, it says one receives distress in that first set of pramanas, shastric pramanas, which come from the arguments. Okay, so it's referring back to that sloka and saying, although this is what it said, it's not applicable for taking initiation into the Gopal mantra. So we should remember that. Now, mostly the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are all taking initiation into Gopal mantra, so they don't have to worry about this previous statement of the Agamas that was cited, saying that you'll get distressed by getting initiated in March, April, right? So a lot of people will get initiated around Gaur Purnima, also Gaudiya Vaishnavas, which comes in February, March, maybe March, April. It may come in March, April, I believe, is Chaitra, is considered Chaitra Mas here. For those of you who know the Indian system of months, Palguna is, of course, when you have the Purnima of Palguna is the birthday of Lord Chaitanya. So Palguna Purnima is actually the last day of the month. So right around Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birth date, or just afterwards, in the Chaitra month we get Ramanavami, and there's some holy days there. Of course, normally the holy days are not the days, although many people will do initiation ceremonies on these holy days. In actual fact, the tradition is not to do initiations on the holy days of the Lord's appearance and disappearance, or whatever, right, or of the Lord's appearance, because we want to, as Vaishnavas, we want to concentrate on the worship of the Lord on those days. But yet some people do it. So anyway, we'll get to that later. Continuing on in text 22, it says, according to Gautamiya Tantra, one should take initiation on Sunday, Monday, Thursday, Wednesday, or Friday, right? So we just notice here that we can notice here Tuesdays and Saturdays, which are days which are related to Tuesdays related to Mars, Saturdays related to Saturn or Shani, right? That these days are rejected. Even Sunday, maybe Sunday is not the greatest day. Wednesday has to do with Vishnu, Friday has to do with Lakshmi, Thursday has to do with Guru. So some of these other days are better days to get initiated if you're looking for a specific day of the week. For a full description of this, people should look at the book I've given out to everybody called Kala Prakasika, which tells you what muhurtas and what days and what months are the best for getting initiated, or for doing any other ceremony or any other function. But here it's just giving a couple. First of all, let's talk about the months. Now it's talking about the days, and we're going to continue on talking in text 23 from Narada Tantra. We're going to talk about the nakshatras, or the stars. Okay. So each day of the year in the calendar is governed by a particular star. So here are some of the stars which are good for initiation. So Rohini, Shravana, Ardra, Dhanishta, Uttara Ashada, Uttara Bhadrapada, Uttara Palguni, Pusha. Pusha is considered to be especially good because Pusha means nourishment, and anything that you do on Pusha is good. And anybody who's an astrologer can chime in and say what they think about these stars. Satabisha. Satabisha is a constellation with 100 stars. So it's also considered the stars under whose influence one is advised to take initiation. So these are also good times, good stars to take initiation under. Continuing on from some other place, another sloka is given. One should give initiation. So this is for the guru and the disciple to work out. One should give initiation when the sun passes through these stars. When the sun passes through these stars, okay? Normally it's the moon that we talk about when we talk about in the Rasi chart of the day, the Kundali that we look at. It's the star which the moon is in, which we designate for the particular day. But here he's talking about the sun. I'm not sure if that's a correct translation or not. One should give initiation when the sun passes through these stars: Ashwini, Rohini, Swati, Vishaka, Hasta, Jeshta, Uttara Ashada, Uttara Bhadrapad, Uttara Palguni. So there are some stars. Okay. Now, we heard from this Shastra in text 25, we're talking again from a Shastra called Sar Sangraha, which means the essence brought together, the compiled essence of some Shastras, right? And it talks about now the Titi, or the lunar dates, right? So these are all the different details that you'll look up when you're trying to set a proper muhurta or a proper time and date for a particular ceremony. You'll think about the months, you'll think about the day of the week, you'll think about the star, and you'll also think about the lunar date, right? So here it says one should give initiation on the 2nd, the 5th, the 6th, the 12th, or the 13th day, right? So Vitiya, Panchami, Shasti, Dwadasi, and Trayodasi. Okay, and then probably if you read Kala Prakasika, it's going to say in the light fortnight, in the waxing phase of the moon, in the Shukla Paksha, not the Krishna Paksha. So we'll see. It doesn't say here necessarily that, but maybe we'll get that in some coming slokas here, and we can also look in the commentary and see if there's any distinction between the light fortnight and the dark fortnight. But usually light fortnight is considered better than dark fortnight. Considering on from elsewhere, a lot of these things are just details, and the student doesn't need to really take much notice of this. It's the spiritual master, the spiritual teacher is going to know all these things, and he's going to set the date for the initiation ceremony. So one can also give initiation on the full moon day, as well as for the 5th, 2nd, 7th, 13th, and 10th days of the month. So you can notice here that the 11th day is left out. The 11th day is the day of Hari, is the Ekadasi. The Ekadasi, we all know what Ekadasi means. It means the 11th day of the moon, both waning and waxing, in the Shukla Paksha and the Krishna Paksha. So that's a specific day for the Lord, for Lord Vishnu, and therefore it's left out. So we can also infer from this that because the special days of Lord Vishnu, like Ekadasi, are left out, that also the Lord's appearance day, which is a special day to worship the Lord, is also left out. And again, this is because the Vaishnavas, if there's a special day or festival to do with the Lord, we prefer to concentrate on worshiping the Lord on that day. And maybe another day we'll do the initiation, where we have to think more about the students and the gurus and doing that ceremony. And then they don't have time to do more elaborate worship of the Lord that day. Okay, because they have to do this other initiation ceremony. So now continuing on with text 27. According to this evidence, one can also give initiation as on auspicious days, such as Thursdays, Fridays of the waxing moon. Here it's mentioned directly, the waxing moon. See, Shukla Pakshe, right? This is what I was saying, right? As well as on the days when the moons and stars are in a favorable position. So the moon and stars are in favorable position, the planets are in favorable position. According to Kala Prakasika, you can read that, or any standard book on Muhurta in Jyotish Shastra, in the astrological science. You can read that and you can figure that out. Each person may have a slightly different time or date, which is more auspicious for them. So in consultation with the teacher, with the guru, the student can work out which is the best date to take initiation. Continuing on, some restrictions. So up until now, we've been mainly giving, although with a few caveats, with a few exceptions, we've been giving good dates to do. Here's some restrictions. We also had that restriction of the leap months, not to do it in leap months. Here it says from the Rudra Yamala, we have Vishnu Yamala, Rudra Yamala. These Yamalas are types of agamas, types of tantric books. One should give initiation or accept initiation in a holy place. Okay, so this, up until now, we haven't talked about where you should do the initiation, but it says in a holy place. That's good. During a solar eclipse, So normally during a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse or grahana, right, we don't perform anything except for the chanting of holy mantras, the chanting of holy names. Mostly some types of shraddhas are performed, but apart from that, usually there's no auspicious ceremonies like weddings or samskars, Vedic samskars, or any worship of the deity really in temples and things, or any cooking, and everybody's supposed to be fasting and sitting in water and chanting the holy name or chanting holy mantras, doing japa. And so here it's saying, if you do initiation at that time, that's good during solar eclipse. Or on Pavitropana Dwadasi. Pavitropana Dwadasi, Dwadasi, Pavitras, there's a system of, there's a festival called Pavitra Festival. The word Pavitra means purification, and there are these silk garlands with different knots with mantras chanted on them, which are going to be explained later on in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. And all of these Dwadasis and different festivals are going to be explained later on in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. But it's saying this particular date, this particular Dwadasi, is a good time for initiation. And we'll leave the details about Pavitropana Dwadasi or till later. Or during the Dhammanaka festival of Lord Jagannath. The Dhammanaka festival of Lord Jagannath. Not exactly sure what the Dhammanaka festival is of Lord Jagannath, but anyway, we can look that up. There's some, because these do not require any purification of the day or months, nor is there any need for any auspicious arrangements of stars. So just like when we're checking for a muhurta, and if we don't find a good muhurta, we can do things at Abhijit muhurta, which is local noon time. Similarly, he's saying that there are some things like the solar eclipse or Pavitropana Dwadasi or this Dhammanaka festival of Lord Jagannath. If you do it at that time, it's considered to be auspicious, whether the stars and the planets are in the right place or not for a particular person. It's an exception. It can be done. It should be done. So, in the above mentioned situation, the positions of the moon and stars remain in perfect order. Therefore, if one takes initiation under these conditions, one lives a long life, achieves great opulence, and finds himself situated in a prosperous family. None of those last things are things that we normally associate with taking initiation to reach. We're not interested in those things. We are interested in gaining spiritual advancement or getting spiritual knowledge, and not all of these things like getting a long life or opulence or finding oneself in a prosperous family. But okay, these might be subsidiary things that come along, other things that come along. Continuing on with text 30, it's stated elsewhere that there's no better time for giving initiation than during a solar eclipse. Anything executed during a solar eclipse yields unlimited results. During the solar eclipse, there is no need to purify the day, the month, or the time of initiation. Okay, so that's a pramana there. So you don't have to worry about doing so many calculations. If there's a solar eclipse, then you should do it on solar eclipse. Tattva Sagara, again, is being quoted here in text 31. It's very rare to receive the association of a bona fide spiritual master. That's considered a rare thing. Because why? Samahatma Sadulabha, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that such rare souls are very, very rare. He says, Manushanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatamapi siddhanam kaschid mam veti tatpadaha. That person who knows the truth, that person is very rare. And in other places he says, Samahatma, that person is very rare. Samahatma Sadulabha. So, it's rare to get the association even of a guru or of a spiritual teacher, a bona fide spiritual teacher. What to speak of actually taking initiation from such a person? Therefore, if one receives this opportunity of getting the association, and the guru will initiate him, as well as the spiritual master's permission, so it's not just his association that you're with him, but you get his permission to take initiation from him. He has to agree. to initiate you, right? That is the most auspicious time for receiving initiation. And this is a very important verse. If you forget all the other verses, just remember this one verse. So no matter what the stars and planets are doing in the sky, no matter what the day is, no matter what the month is, no matter what the day of the week and all the titis and whatever it is, if you receive the association, the sadhu sangha of a great advanced Vaishnava, and that person gives permission for you to take initiation from him, that is the most auspicious time to receive it. So this is what I said, that there's many other verses that come in Hari Bhakti Vilasa when we discuss different topics. There'll be some other verses, but at the end of the topic, or near the end of the topic, the siddhanta, or the perfection of that topic will be given. So here we have the example of such a siddhanta verse, where it says that the spiritual master, whatever he says is the right time to take initiation, even if you're an astrologer and you think different, whenever your guru tells you, whatever he tells you, that's perfect and that's the best time. Because it's rare that you get the association of such an advanced spiritual teacher, and it's even rarer that he gives permission for him to initiate you. So you should take advantage of that when he says it, do it right away. Do it at the time when he says it. And don't tell him, well, I think it might be better on Friday. Or, look, it's a leap month. I can't do it on the leap month. What'll happen to me, like that. If the guru says, this is the real point. The guru says, do it now, you do it. That's the point. Now, normally the guru also knows all these things from scripture, right? He knows all the scriptures and he knows the auspicious days. So normally a guru is not going to say to you to not do it, to do it if it's, leap month or something like that. But at the same time, we have people like in the Sri Sampradaya, we have a thing called dripta property and artha property. So we have people who feel that they must take initiation, they must immediately surrender to the Lord, and if they don't do it, they feel like, well, maybe what if I die? I don't know. Life is so transitory. It's like the water drop on the lotus leaf, right? It may drop off at any moment. We may die at any moment, right? Padam yadvi padam natesham. In the Bhagavatam says that this step by step in this world is full of birth, death, disease, and old age. At any moment we can die. So some people feel very, very strongly like this, that I may die at any moment. So when they reach the guru, they say, Guru, please initiate me now. You do it now, right now, because I'm afraid that, if you put it off till next week, maybe I'll die in that time and I'll die without being initiated. I want to be initiated by you right now. There's an interesting story about this. With Ramanuja had two main disciples. One of his main disciples, or his main disciple, is called Kuradawan or Kuresha. And his wife had twins, sons, at one time, and they were born. And this Grihastha disciple of Ramanuja, he went to Ramanuja and said, Guruji, I just had twin boys born and I want you to initiate them immediately. I want you to initiate them. And normally they don't initiate little babies when they're first born. The babies stay with the mother in what's called the Suchika Griha, which is the place where the baby was born, and they don't go out from that place for the first 10 days and until the Asocha period or the T2 period is finished. And then they go out for the first time. But even then, the children, when they're so young, they don't take initiation, right? Mantra Diksha. So, but this disciple was thinking, oh, it's so important that they hear the mantras from Ramanuja, that they're initiated by Ramanuja. Otherwise, what if they die before they hear the mantras? Like, he was afraid that these child in those days, infant mortality was much greater than it is today. There was less medical science, so children used to die. Mothers used to die in childbirth. The children used to die in childbirth. So just after the child is born is also still a precarious time in the child's life. So he was thinking, let me take these children to Ramanuja immediately. Ramanuja was saying, well, they're just little kids, they're just infants, maybe they should stay with their mother and you shouldn't bring them immediately because they've just been born, they're very in a delicate situation. the disciple insisted, no, Swami, I'm going to bring them because they must be initiated by you. What if they, what if they pass away? What if they leave this world without being initiated? Okay. So Ramanuja said, all right, he gave permission. He said, bring them here. I'll give them mantra diksha. Like that, these infants. So Kuresha he went to go and bring the children. So as he was coming, he was bringing the children. And when he arrived there, Ramanuja said, all right, so now I'll give the mantra to them. And Kuresha said, no, there's no need anymore. So Ramanuja was taken aback. He said, what do you mean there's no need? And you told me that you're going to bring the children to take initiation to get mantra diksha from me. And you were afraid that they might die before. He said, yeah. And when I went to get them, then as I was coming back, I was thinking, what if they die while I'm bringing them to you? What if they die before I bring them to you? So I gave them the mantra. I gave them the mantras on the way because I was afraid that they would die even before coming to you. I was so afraid that they would die before getting diksha. So I gave them diksha on the way. So Ramanuja said, all right, good. That's nice. Okay, so that's nice. So it's all finished like that. Just an example to encourage people to take diksha. It's important that you take diksha. Don't put it off. Don't say, oh, well, I'm living my material life now, and maybe later on when I turn 65 and I retire, and I finish my business and cheating everybody in business and making money in business and doing some questionable things in my life, when I get very old and my senses get weak, maybe that time I'll meet a spiritual master and I'll get ready for death and by taking initiation. No, that's not the idea. We shouldn't think like that. We should think that we may die the next second. So immediately, it's very important that we take initiation like that. Some people think like that too. The Lord sends them, right? There's an example. There's a story. I don't know if people will appreciate this story, but there's a story. There's a story that there was a guy and he was living in a house, and then they heard that there was going to be a big flood. So they said, no, you should evacuate. You should leave. The people came to the door and they knocked on the house and they said, look, we're here to help you leave, to evacuate, to get away from the flood. He goes, no. God will save me. God will save me. Don't worry. Okay. So then the water started coming up and then somebody came, right, when the water was halfway up the house. So he went to the upper story of the house and a man came along in a boat. People came along in a boat and they said, we'll rescue you. You can get in the boat, and you'll be saved. We'll take you away. He said, no, don't worry. I'm completely dependent upon God. You go. I'll be fine. God will save me. I have faith in God. God will save me. Okay. So the boat left. Then the whole house is completely underwater and the guy was on the top of the roof. So a helicopter came and the helicopter guy, the man from the helicopter spoke down to him and said, we've come to rescue you. We'll put down the rope and the ladder and you can climb up and we'll fly you away to safety like that. And he said, no, it's okay. I believe in God. I'm completely surrendered to God and God will save me. Don't worry. So the helicopter went away. Now the flood waters continued to rise and the guy drowned. So the story is that he drowned and he went to heaven. This is a joke or a story. And he went there and he said, I thought that he said to God, I thought that you would save me. And God said, I sent a guy to knock on your door. I sent another guy in a boat. And I even sent a guy in a helicopter. What more can I do? So some people, the moral of this story is that sometimes we don't realize that God is trying to save us. So some people, they meet spiritual teachers all the time. They meet people who are perfectly qualified to give them initiation. What is initiation? It's the beginning of spiritual life. It's the ABCs of spiritual life. So we meet people all the time who are teaching us about spiritual life. We're teaching us the ABCs, but somehow or other in our head, we're waiting for somebody to come. We're waiting for Jesus Christ or Prabhupada or we're waiting for some great personality to come to us in a dream or to come to us in some miraculous way. or I'm going to meet my guru. He's going to be, we have all these grandiose ideas of what's going to happen. But the Lord himself is constantly sending us people, teaching us about spiritual life. But we don't realize he's sending us gurus all the time. He's sending us people, sending Vaishnavas to us who are teaching us about spiritual life. And we're not thinking, oh, I could take initiation from this person. I could learn from this person. I could actually make a lot of advancement from this person. But we're rejecting that because we're thinking, oh, no, God's going to send us there's going to be some miracle and we're special and we're going to get Prabhupada's going to come back and give us initiation or something's going to happen like that. So this is just that we don't see. We're not looking. We should be looking for the opportunity to accept a bona fide spiritual master and take initiation. We should be looking for that if we haven't. Right? After we've taken initiation, we also have to be looking for that association of other Vaishnavas to help us as Shiksha Gurus, to help us in spiritual life, right? To help us make advancement. We should always be looking for that. So this is a very important point here, that is saying it doesn't matter whether you're in a village or in a forest or a rice field, whether it's day or night. The best time for initiation is the time recommended by the spiritual master. So if you're not initiated, a Vaishnava comes to you, preaches to you, impresses you, accepts you, and you accept him, and you have faith in him, you should try to gain faith in such people, and he will give you Diksha, he or she. Right? So continuing on with text 33, whenever the spiritual master decides to give it, that is the perfect time for accepting initiation. Visiting holy places, observing vows, performing sacrifices, taking the bath, and chanting mantras are not the criterion for taking initiation. So you might think, yeah, I'll take initiation next time I visit Vrindavan and my guru's in Vrindavan, I'll take initiation that time. Or I'll wait till Kartik and we're doing Kartik Vrata, we're doing something, or let's perform some big sacrifice and at the end of that I'll take initiation, or let me bathe in the Ganges or the Yamuna or the Kaveri and get holy, and then, or let me chant so many Harinams and blah, 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 and become perfect. And then afterwards, after I finish that vow of doing that, then somehow I'll take initiation. These are not criteria for initiation. Rather, the darshan, right? The acceptance, the association with the bona fide spiritual teacher, right? Spiritual master and his supreme will are the criterion for accepting initiation. Okay? So now we're going to talk about the actual process of doing the initiation. This is all building up to these processes. These are a little technical here. So it says Ata Mandapa Nirmana Vidhi. So the vidhi, the actual procedure, or prayoga or procedure, vidhi, for building a mandapa. A mandapa means a covered sort of enclosed area pavilion in which the fire ceremony, which is going to accompany the initiation, is going to go on, and the disciples will come and be initiated by the guru. The guru will perform the rituals in there. So, text 34 to 36, there are 4 types of initiation. And then yesterday we were discussing some aspects from the book Sharda Tilaka Tantra. So these are also described in Sharda Tilaka Tantra, right? So there's Kriyavati, Kalavati, Varnamayi, and Vedhamayi, right? These are 4 types of tantric initiation or agamic initiation, Vaishnava initiation. Now we will discuss the Kriyavati initiation in brief, okay? So the specific initiation which is being discussed here in Hari Bhakti Vilas and recommended for Gaudiya Vaishnavas is this Kriyavati initiation. First of all, one should cleanse a particular place and worship the predominating deity of the earth. So up here, it's saying, if we look in the Sanskrit, it's saying Vastu Devataha. And Devata is in plural, right? So we worship the earth and perform the Vastu Puja. So Vastu Puja, there are about 45 different devatas which are worshipped, who are sitting on the back of an asura called Vastu, who is a son of Shiva. Shiva was fighting the story in I think Agni Purana or Matsya Purana. I'm not sure. We'll have to look it up, but it's there further on in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. There's a person called, many people have heard of Vastu these days. Vastu is the Vedic feng shui, right, idea. But there are many people who are now Vastu consultants. Like if you want to know how to put your furniture in your new house, you get the Vastu person to come, or if you're building a new house, you ask the Vastu person to come, and he's going to tell you what feng shui, how to do the Vastu. So Vastu has to do, in Vedic civilization, has to do with buildings and things inside the building, and how to arrange different things in the best way, in the most auspicious way. So this Vastu started out that Shiva was fighting one demon, and he was sweating while he was fighting this demon. A drop of sweat came down and turned into a personality, and that personality considered Shiva to be his father. And he said to Shiva, "I'm very hungry. You have to feed me." And Shiva said, "Well, what do you want to eat?" And he said, "Well, I want to eat the whole universe. I'm so hungry. I'm very, very hungry. I want to eat the whole universe." So Shiva could understand that this personality, if left unchecked, would take all the fruits of all the sacrifices, of all the different religious ceremonies that everybody is doing. So if you do any ceremony, the fruit of that ceremony, if you want to get the fruit of that ceremony, or the result of that ceremony, Vastu is right there ready to take the fruit of that ceremony, right, if you don't satisfy him first. So the way to satisfy him is by doing this Vastu puja. In fact, a whole lot of the devatas, they all decided to keep this guy in check. So what they did was they all sat on him and they squashed him onto the earth. And so that's why there's a thing called a Vastu Mandala, which looks like a set of, it looks like 8 by 8 or 9 by 9 squares, depending on whether you're using it for a temple or for a house. And it has the figure of a man squished out squashed onto the ground. And then on top of the man, who is the Vastu, right, these 45 different devatas are worshipped. And that's called Vastu Mandala Puja. In South India, they don't usually do it that elaborately. They usually just do a fire sacrifice, and they worship Vastu by offering different oblations into the fire. But in North India, most other parts of India, they're doing this full Vastu Puja. And so what it says here is the very first thing that you do is you clean the place. Now, how do you clean the place where you're going to have a mandap for doing your initiation ceremony? The Vedic method of cleaning it is you clean it. Sometimes when we're making sacrifices, they actually plow the land. They grow sprouts on the land. They grow a crop on the land, and they have cows come and graze on it and eat the crop. And this is if you have a lot of time, okay? Otherwise, you just want to level off the land. You want to make sure that there's no inauspicious items there. That's sometimes why you plow the land, to see if there's any bones or any rocks or any inauspicious things or unclean things there, and purify the land. Sprinkle the land with water and cow dung and plaster the land and make it all very auspicious. So these are some ways that you can purify. We could go into a lot of detail on all these things. Here it just says, cleanse the place. Okay, so for instance, if you're doing initiation, it's inside, clean the place, clean the house, tidy up and take everything that's extraneous out of that area and clean it up and wash the floor and make everything nice and purify it, and sprinkle holy water and, light some incense, maybe sprinkle some rose water and make it all auspicious and good smelling and nice like that. So, okay, and then we have to worship the predominating deity of the earth, which is this Vastu, and so there's a method of doing Vastu Puja. Then thereafter, one should erect a square raised platform, and the diameter of the platform should be 7 or 8 feet. Now, here it's going to be given in a different thing. Here it says, Sapta Hasta. So hasta is actually not feet, but a hasta is the length of hasta is going to be like from the tip of the finger up until the elbow, right? So you make a slightly raised platform, 7 or 8 hands square. And that's going to be your platform, your mandapa. On the 4 sides of the platform, you put 8 flags, 2 on each side. So it'd be 2 on each side, perhaps in the middle. Exactly where, we don't know. There's some other books, some other shastras which we can read where we can talk about where to put the flags, where to make the gateways, how to make the gates. There'll be a gate in each side. So north, south, east, and west sides. You might put braided rope around. The rope may be braided with kusha grass rope or some auspicious type of rope. So one should also place branches of the banyan tree. Banyan is a very auspicious tree, represents Lord Vishnu, on both sides of the altar and erect a gate. One should surround the altar with braided rope made of kusha grass. Okay. Anyway, if you can't get all these things, then you can simply erect we're going to talk about erecting the kunda, the yagya kunda, or the standila, the place where we're going to perform the fire ceremony which is part of the initiation ceremony, right? We're going to erect that in a particular part of the mandapa, of the yagshala, of the place where the fire ceremony is to be performed, and then we're going to talk about that next. So these are all, if you want to do everything in a very elaborate way, of course, and if you have the facility to do that, you can build your own mandapa. Otherwise, you just do this somewhere. You have to build you have to have the pit for doing the fire in. Okay. So the process in verses texts 37 to 38 is going to be talking about this pit. So on the north side of the raised platform, so we have the platform is north, south, east, and west. In the north side, a pit is dug of about 1 foot wide, 1 foot long, and 1 foot deep. And again, they're going to be using, I believe, the term here. They're talking about trimekala. So chatuskona, there's a square. You make a square, a fire pit, and it's got 3 levels, or trimekalas, 3 belts, 3 levels. Like a step pyramid, that. And what does it say here? Chaturvimsati anguli. Chaturvimsati anguli. And anguli is like 2 centimeters, like the span of a finger. The width of a finger is an anguli, like that. So chaturvimsati means 24 angulis. So normally, I believe a hasta is about 18 angulis. So I'm not exactly sure. We could look it up. But there's these are all, just approximations. So 24 angulis would be about 48 centimeters. Let's say about 36 inches or something like that. Chaturvimsati anguli. Normally 1 hasta for anyway, it says here different things. So 1 foot wide, 1 foot long, and 1 foot deep should be dug. Okay, so the idea is normally we dig a hole a little bit into the earth when we make this pit. So it's dug a little bit into the earth, and then there's sides that are put up in the step pyramid form, and that's how we do it. And it could be made with 3 boundaries made of bricks, like that. Now, some people, they have a portable pit, or they have a different type of pit, or they do it above the ground level. That's also okay, like that, whatever is available. So continuing on in the discussion, text 39, the first boundary should be 4 angulis high and wide. The second should be 3, and the third should be 2 angulis. So as the step pyramid gets smaller, the first step is a little wider and higher. Second one's a little less wide and high, and the third one is a little less wide and high. Again, the anguli can be 2 centimeters or an inch, approximately less than 3/4 of an inch or something like that. So continuing on with text 40, on the western side, outside the 3 walls, one should dig another pit, which should be 6 angulis wide and 12 angulis long. Okay, that's paschime on the western side. And that pit should be shaped like, or like a heart shape or a yoni shape, or it could be a triangle almost. So it says here yonim chichasma bhagi. The depth of this pit should be 1 anguli, and it should have a hole in the middle, and it should look like the lower lip of an elephant. Now, this also could refer to the yoni or the anguli, the yoni or the triangle shape that they put on the fire pit on the western side of the fire pit itself, right? I think that's what it means. It's not, we're not digging another pit, but it's on the top of the step pyramid on the western side, right? Now, normally you'll sit in, the person who's performing the fire ceremony, the main priest, will sit on the western side of the fire facing east. So right in front of him on the top step of the step pyramid is a triangle shape with the point facing away from him, or it's described here to be like a yoni, which is yoni actually technically means the shape of a vulva, shape of a woman's vulva, sexual organ, but we can say it's like a triangle, and here it's said to be like that should be the depth of this. So it should be a small sort of pit-shaped thing on the top of the top step, and it should be slightly bent down towards the fire, and the bottom part of it should look like the lower lip of an elephant, and there should be a hole in the middle, and it should be one anguli deep, let's say. Right. So then, in order to perform 50 fire sacrifices, what does 50 fire sacrifices mean? So I believe what we're talking about is we're talking about the number of ahutis, the number of oblations that you put into the fire, number of oblations of ghee and grains that you put into the fire, right? If that would be 50, then you should dig a kunda or a pit which is 1 foot deep. What does it say here? It says, there's a lot of different terminology here for different lengths and depths. So what we have to do is we have to translate all this more exactly, right? So, but anyway, the point given in this set of slokas is that the more oblations that you offer into the fire, if you're going to do more oblations, you have to have a bigger fire. One should dig a kunda and pit which is 1 foot deep. To perform 100 sacrifices, the kunda or 100 oblations should be 1 foot and 2 inches deep. To perform 1,000, it should be 1 foot and 4 inches deep. So to perform 100,000 fire sacrifices, the kunda should be 5 feet, 4 inches deep. And to perform 1 million or 1 koti is actually 10 million fire sacrifices, the kunda should be, means a crore, koti, should be 10 feet, 8 inches deep, and the pit should be in the form of a square. So in all cases, the pit should be in the form of a square, but it could be deeper if there are more oblations that are being offered into it, because when there's more oblations, you need to put in more wood, and you have to have a bigger fire, because the oblations themselves, the ghee, if you put a lot of ghee on a very small fire, it's going to drown the fire of the flames. So you need a bigger fire if you're going to put a lot of oblations into the fire. It's just basic fire management to understand, right? So that's an explanation of that. To work out the exact dimensions that are being described here, we can look it up. We can talk about exactly what an anguli, what a musti, what a hasta, all these different lengths and are exactly in our modern inches and centimeters. So continuing on from text 44 to 45, it says, it's all right to perform more sacrifices in a small kunda. So if you have a small one, you can do more, but it's not proper to offer less in a large one. So if you're going to make a very large pit, a very large fire pit, it means it's for a big sacrifice. If you want to do a big sacrifice in a small one, you can. You just have to be careful not to drown the fire with a lot of ghee and put it out. An intelligent person should make a kunda according to the prescribed rules and regulations. Otherwise, he will face many miserable conditions. So you have to be a little bit expert making this fire altar, and know how many people are going to be initiated, what kind of ceremony, how long the fire has to last for. So you have to be a little bit experienced in order to even make this fire thing. So the Noah of the Tantras say, in verses 46 and 47, it says, if the kunda is made according to the prescribed rules and regulations, it awards one the desired results. If the kunda is too big or too small, one incurs many faults. So we should be careful to follow the instructions of the scriptures according to the ceremony that we're going to do. If it's a big ceremony or a small ceremony, we should adjust it. Therefore, those who desire auspiciousness should first examine everything and then make a kunda about 1 foot and 4 inches deep for the purpose of performing a small fire sacrifice. Now, continuing on from Smarta Harit, it says in verse 48, if the kunda is too wide or too small, then it shortens the duration of the person's life, meaning either the guru or the student or both of them. If the kunda is too deep, then one will become diseased. If it's too shallow, one will lose his wealth. If it's crooked, if it's not completely square, one will suffer miseries. And if the boundaries are broken, right, the different, I think it's the boundaries we're talking about, the mekalas, the steps, pyramids, right? Right, Chinna mekala, it says here, broken boundaries or broken steps. Then one faces death in the near future. Continuing on to text 49, if the boundaries are too small, then one will suffer due to lamentation. If the boundaries are too big, so we have to be careful about building these steps. The boundaries are too big, then one will lose his domestic animals. If there is no pit, if there's no pit at all, that is yoni hinam. So this symbol or this yoni that goes on the pit in the western side of the pit, if there isn't one of those, one will lose his wife. Okay, and the reasoning behind that is because the yoni is shaped like the female's genitals, so somehow or other it affects the wife of the person who's the sacrificer. Right? So, and if there is no boundaries in the kunda, what it means is if you're not putting this on here, you're not thinking about doing it properly, then you're probably neglecting your wife also because you're not thinking of her, so you lose your wife. There's many ideas about this, okay? But anyway, that part, to emphasize that you should have that yoni part there, it gives you this warning that if you don't do it, you may lose your wife. And if there are no boundaries in the kunda, then one will lose all auspiciousness. So if you just do it on a flat piece of ground. Now, these are, again, all these different things are being stated, all these different details are being stated, but the siddhanta will be that even if you can't perform a fire sacrifice at all, or if you have to do it on a flat piece of earth, still, if the guru says you can do it, still it's going to be okay and everything is going to be all right, because that is these details are not the essence of initiation. They're the details. So we're talking about the details here. The measurement of 1 finger, an anguli parimanam. So we were talking about angulis, how many angulis, and what's a measurement of a finger, right? So 1 anguli is equal to 8 grains of barley. So if you get 8 grains of barley and lay them end to end, right, or side by side, I'm not sure, right? Oh, kept side by side, it says, kept side by side, or 3 grains of rice, kept one above the other. I don't know, one to the other, like that. You get 1 anguli, 3 grains of rice. Okay, so that's just an explanation of what it is, right? We can look it up in some other books. They probably give a translation of it into centimeters or inches, or fractions of those things. So continuing on with text 51, there are other procedures regarding the building of the sacrificial kunda, and one should take them from the relevant texts. So we can refer to other books that give us more details about building the fire sacrifice, right? Fearing that this book will be too voluminous, I will refrain from describing them here. So Gopal Bhatta is saying, look, there's a lot of other, and we have books that explain how to make the mandapa, how to make the kunda, how to make all these things in much more detail. But we'll leave it for here. You can go and study that in some other book. But what I'm more interested in teaching you about the actual diksha, and therefore this is just details. So you can find that some other place if you want to really get into it. Because if I put all the details in here, it'll make this book too voluminous. Okay, so he's finished that. So that is the end of setting up the mandapa. So what I'd like to do is, now it's been a couple of hours since we started the class. So if anybody has any questions or comments, we can have them at this time. And then perhaps we can pick up this next week at text 52, which is talking about the Diksha Mandala. So do we have was there any questions or comments about that? Krishna Swarup or Dear Nitai or Premananda?
I don't have at the moment, thank you.
Right. So there's a lot of detail. I mean, we went through some discussion of philosophy and stuff regarding the Ritviks and all this sort of thing, and initiation and all sort of stuff. But finally, we got to a point where we're getting into the nitty gritty of all the little technical details of performing the Diksha ceremony. We're also going to find out that none of these little details really mean much. The most important thing is that the guru transmits the transcendental vibration of the transcendental mantra, the Gopal mantra, to the disciple. That's the main aspect of initiation. And so that's the thing in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. There are a lot of details, and we can go into all the details if you want in much more time-consuming way, but the details are actually variable.
I have a question.
Sure.
What is the difference between this Samashrayam in the Sri Sampradaya and Diksha in Hari Bhakti Vilasa?
Samashrayanam is a type of diksha. The word Samashrayanam means Sharanagati or property. Sharanagati or property, yeah. Property means surrender. Sharanagati means surrender. Samashrayana means taking shelter, means surrender. Taking shelter of the Lord through the agency of the Guru, through mediatorship of the Guru. And that's exactly what people are doing in all the Vaishnava Sampradayas. They're all approaching a Guru and they're taking initiation. They're surrendering to the Lord with the help of the Guru through him. And he's giving them specific holy mantras, which are non-different from the Supreme Lord, and by cultivating which they can use them in their ritual worship. They can also use them for their meditation. There's so much meaning of philosophy within those mantras. The Gopal mantra, according to Gaudiya Vaishnavas, explains Govinda, Govindaya, Gopijana Vallabhaya. Was it Krishnaya, Govindaya, Gopijana Vallabhaya? So Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana, all these things which are also explained in the Sri Sampradaya, Tattva, Hita, and Purushartha. They're all explained in great detail. So from the one mantra is explained the whole philosophy of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And also in Sri Vaishnavism, also from the mantras that are given in Diksha, this elaborate understanding which is given in the Rahasya Granthas, which we're going through, Mumukshapadi and Srivachana Bhushana and Rahasya Trayasaram, whatever it is. People are reading those things and studying those things, and they're explaining the full gamut of the meaning of philosophical meaning. So there's philosophical meaning, there's technical issues of practice. So there's doctrine and practice, which is being transmitted to the disciple by the Guru, and that begins with that begins with initiation, because the mantra is the seed that the guru gives. Like in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, they say Bhakti Lata Bij. It's the seed which the guru gives to the disciple, and from which all of the realization comes as the guru continues to instruct the disciple on the inner meaning and the esoteric meaning of the mantras and things like that. So the Pancha Samskara, in terms of Sri Vaishnavism, there's Wadagalai and Tengalais, there's the southern and northern school. In the southern school, the Samashrayanam or Pancha Samskara is the system, is the part where people do surrender to the Lord. In the northern school, they don't consider that to be the part where people actually do the property and surrender. They do that later in a separate ceremony. But they consider that it's only just approaching the guru and learning some things from the guru and becoming officially a Vaishnava, but not actually surrendering everything. But in the southern school, in the Tengalai school, that is surrendering everything. In all the other Vaishnava Sampradayas, Diksha is considered the point where people formally submit themselves and surrender at the lotus feet of the guru, who is going to take them, lead them in their spiritual life to the Lord, like that. So,
Okay.
so Samashrayanam in Sri Vaishnavism means surrender to the Lord. You're surrendering to the Lord, but you're doing it through the agency of the Acharya. Yeah. And so there's no difference really. There's no difference between Diksha and other Sampradayas and Diksha and the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. The only difference is the difference in the mantras and perhaps the qualification, like we discussed in the first Vilasa and everything, perhaps the qualification of the gurus and the qualification of the disciples is less, because the system in Sri Vaishnavism doesn't depend upon the qualification of the guru or the disciples. It depends on the Lord only, especially in the southern school, right, in the Tengalai tradition. But in all the other systems, everybody's performing bhakti yoga. So in order to perform bhakti yoga, there are certain qualifications. So the guru has to have certain qualifications, which we went through in the first Vilasa of Hari Bhakti Vilasa. And the disciple also has to have some qualifications. And once they test each other and they agree to accept each other, they formally enter that relationship. It's like you can you can date and you can meet a lady and you can propose to her and you can be you can have a fiance, but you actually at a certain date you get married. So the initiation is like marriage. It's like the marriage ceremony where the soul marries the Lord, becomes wedded again to the Lord. It's an official formal. There are people who don't get married. They're in a relationship and they live their whole life in the relationship. They don't actually formalize it legally or formalize it. But the initiation is the formality, like that. It's the formality, but it's more than a formality because it gives one the mantra, and the mantra is the essence of the. In Sri Vachanabhushanam, we were discussing that one learns, first of all, one steadies the mind and by steadying the mind and controlling the mind, one can control the senses. And after controlling the mind and senses, the Lord will send a guru to you, and you'll find a sadguru, and you'll surrender to the guru. And by surrendering to the guru and approaching the guru will deliver to you the mantra, and the mantra is the Lord Himself, and the mantra becomes the process by which you attain liberation or attain the goal, or whatever, if you consider it to be Krishna prema, whatever it is you consider the goal of chanting the mantra, of meditating on the mantra, using the mantra. That will be through the mantra, which is non different from the Lord, and ultimately the primary cause of your salvation will be the Lord Himself. But the guru and Radha or Lakshmi, act as mediators between the soul and the Supreme in that process of formal surrender. Just like you might have a friend, and the friend introduces you to somebody, who eventually you marry, like that. So there's somebody as a go-between. You know, sometimes they have this in Shakespearean plays and things like that. They have somebody who's a go-between in between the person who somebody wants to approach one lady and marry her, but he can't approach her because, you know, there's some problem like in Romeo and Juliet. And so they have a go-between. They have somebody who goes there. And so somehow or other, the guru prays on behalf of the disciples that the Lord should, that Radha and Krishna should accept the disciple, or Lakshmi and Shrimanarayana, they should accept the disciple. And so because the guru is a great devotee and he's a lover of God, then God says, yeah, okay, I'll accept this other person on your recommendation. And because Radha says, you know, accept this person, forgive his sins. And we always see that the mediator acts like the mother towards the children and towards the husband in the family relationship. God is like the husband or father. The errant souls, the Nitya Buddhas are like the children, and Radha or Lakshmi is in between, and the guru is a representative of her, and so he mediates between them, or she mediates between the children. But she's the mother of the children, so she has a lot of compassion on the children. But she also is the wife of the husband, and she can also deal with him and get him to quell his anger and stop him being thinking of punishing the children, and invoke his compassion on all the different living entities. So these are all analogies. The analogy of getting married, the analogy of the family, you know, these are just analogies for us to understand the actual relationship that the souls have with God. But basically we have to understand that we are, our position as eternal servants of God and eternally subservient to him, completely subservient to him. Once we understand that, and we understand our relationship, then it's easy to have a relationship with him, because we know that we're his children, and we have to act like that. And once we understand that, then our eternal mother, our eternal father will have, you know, Radha and Krishna or Lakshmi and Narayan, they'll have a compassion upon us. And so this is just a formal beginning of that relationship. We are eternally their children and their servants, but we've forgotten that, or we never knew that, and we haven't actually engaged in doing that. So we've been in this material world for so long. So it takes a little bit of getting used to. So it's like breaking the ice in a relationship, in a new relationship that you have. It's practically new because we haven't engaged in that relationship, you know, before. And so it's like breaking the ice in a relationship and trying to become comfortable with our new relationship as being completely subservient and dependent upon the Lord. When we've been used to thinking in this material world that we're the owner and controller of everything and the be all and end all, but now we have to think that we're actually insignificant, and that we have to be humble, and we have to act like a servant and be submissive like that. So that's the way it is. Just like in a traditional wedding, you know, they'll say to the bride, they'll say, will you serve the husband and, or, you know, throughout your days and obey him and blah blah blah. So it's the same thing in initiation. You know, the guru is saying to you, do you take the Supreme Lord as to be your master, like this, you know, for always, like that. Lord Rama says in the Charma Sloka in the Ramayana, he says, if you just simply say one time, I'm yours. And this is what people say in a marriage ceremony. The bride will say, I'm yours, you know. I'm yours. I belong to you. I'm your dearest wife. You know, I'm your dearest servant. So the same thing in initiation. That the Ramacharma Sloka says, just simply one time, you have to think like that. I'm yours, and Lord Rama will protect us like that. So it's the same thing in Gaudiya Vaishnava. The same thing in all these, even in Christianity and some other religions, they have this idea of surrendering to God like that. This is just a formal external thing, a way of doing it. It's not the be all and end all. It's not the most important thing, but it is important because the mantra is transmitted from the guru to the disciple, and the guru then continues to give him deep understanding. Normally you wouldn't read a book like Mokshapati or Srivachana Bhushanam without first doing Samashranam and taking Pancha Samskar. So normally what happens in the different Vaishnava traditions is, first of all, you approach a guru and he might have you do different things, but he's not going to tell you any secret esoteric doctrines. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita the Lord actually says this, is not to be taught to those people who are not austere or devoted. So if you're not austere and devoted, the Bhagavad Gita shouldn't be taught to you. But fortunately or unfortunately, we have great Vaishnava devotees who come and they teach even the rascals. They teach us all the secret knowledge, the Raja Vidya, the Raja Guhyam, the supreme secrets are being taught to all of us, right? Even though we're not qualified for them. So that is the compassion of the Vaishnavas. That's the compassion of the Guru. And sometimes we're not, nobody should think that we're entitled. We're entitled to all these secrets. We're entitled to all this spiritual knowledge. No, we're not entitled, because we've forgotten about God. We're not acting like we're his servant. So we're completely rebellious in this material world. So we are not entitled to anything. But somehow or other, through the mercy of Radha and Lakshmi and, the gurus, our acharyas, we are getting a chance. So they're giving us a chance. So this system is to get us to the point of beginning spiritual life, even though we're just rascals and we don't have the qualification. None of us have the qualification. Well, speaking for myself, I'll just speak for myself, that we don't feel that we have we don't feel that we're in a position that we should get this mercy, this great mercy. But it's causeless. The mercy is totally causeless. We're a completely helpless baby kitten, and the mother cat's going to come up and just pick us up by the mouth and save us. There's nothing that we can do. That we haven't done anything great to deserve that. So anyway, I wanted just to sort of leave it here. There's going to be a lot of more technical things in Hari Bhakti Vilas about initiation, and we have to understand what are the most important things. What are the most important things? What are the essential things? And what things are not essential? The essential thing is what what Lord Krishna says and what Lord Rama says. Krishna says, "Sarva dharmam parityaja." Just abandon all varieties of religion. Just abandon all these ideas. So there might be all these technical things that you can just forget about them. The main thing is sarva dharmam parityaja, mam ekam, me alone. Surrender. Sharanam braja. Just surrender unto me. Just surrender unto me. That's the main thing. So there's all these technical things and formalities and whatever. The main thing is just surrender unto me. And then he says, Aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami. Mokshayishyami, I will relieve you of all the reactions to sarva papebhyo, all sins. Masuchaha, don't fear. Don't fear. Right? So don't worry. Don't worry about all the technicalities and doing all these things, karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti, whatever it is. Just surrender unto me and I'll take care of everything. I'll free you, I'll liberate you. And Rama says the same thing. Just think in your mind, I am yours. I'm surrendered to you, O Lord, and I'll take care of everything. I will take care of absolutely everything, all the details. And so mostly disciples, they don't care about this because this is written, this part of Hari Bhakti Vilas, all these technical things and pujas and whatever it is like that, it's all written for the gurus to know and to teach disciples who need to know. Maybe every disciple doesn't need to know how to build a fire pit or to do a ceremony or Vastu Puja, or every disciple doesn't need to know that. But the guru should know. The guru should know. The teacher should know. It's just like in any subject, right? If you go to school and you're in math class, maybe you don't learn everything there is to know about mathematics. But your teacher should know. The teacher should know mathematics properly. So maybe you don't, and maybe you just learn enough mathematics to graduate or to get your diploma and to go to the next class. But the teacher should know properly. He should know fully all these things. So the details are there for the teacher to know. And to the extent that they become important for a student, they can be taught to a student. But the teacher also knows when he should teach, what he should teach to particular students. So some students, he'll teach all the details and everything because the students want to learn those things and they want to practice those things. And for other students, he teaches the basics and he teaches the main principles and he teaches the thing which will help that student to graduate, and that's it. He doesn't need to teach everything to every student. So that's what happens. So there are some things. So that's up to the teacher. That's the way the teacher teaches, like that. So it's not necessary for everybody to know all these little fine rules and regulations in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. And that's why many Gaudiya Acharyas, they haven't emphasized all the details of these things. And it's the same thing with Sri Vaishnavas. If you take initiation from a Sri Vaishnava or another Vaishnava guru, he's not going to teach you, he's not going to take you through all the details of the initiation ceremony and teach you the whole thing, or teach you every little detail of every puja or whatever. He's going to teach you very simple things. And for most people are just going to learn simple things, you know. But those things are the basic things and the most important things, and those are the things which are emphasized also in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. But the thing about Hari Bhakti Vilasa is it's encyclopedic. So it includes a lot of other stuff as well, all these other details and technical issues. So if you're not interested in, if you're not interested in reading an encyclopedia, right, don't read Hari Bhakti Vilasa because it's an encyclopedia. So you're going to get all these little technical issues. If you just want a simple book, you know, then you read another book that's not Hari Bhakti Vilasa. Just read Bhagavad Gita or something which simply tells you the principles of spiritual life, but not the details and the technicalities and all these different things. That's all. That's the only difference. Like that. But certainly, what is called Samashrayanam or Panchasamskara or property in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya is called Vaishnava Diksha in the Gaudiya Sampradaya and other Sampradayas. It's also called Vaishnava Diksha by Sri Vaishnavas, but in general today, if you talk to Sri Vaishnavas and they talk about Diksha, they usually use that word for the people in the temple priests, when temple priests take another form of initiation where they can worship the deity in the temple. And they're not talking about ordinary Diksha. Ordinary Diksha means for everybody. Everybody's getting Samashrayanam. Everybody's surrendering to the Lord. But there are some people who take another Diksha as well, and so that they can worship in the temple. And it requires more learning of more technical things because temple worship is more complicated than house worship. So everybody in Sri Vaishnavism can worship in the house, but not everybody in the temple. And even somebody might be a guru in Sri Vaishnavism, but he can't worship in the temple. Only the person who learns all the technical things can worship in the temple. So there's two tracks of Diksha. There's a Diksha for the priestly class who worship in the temple. And there's a Diksha for everybody else, including gurus and whatever, just the lay people. And that's called Samashrayanam. And that's the important one. That's the more important one. Because you talk to Sri Vaishnavas about this, and they'll say, well, maybe you have this knowledge of how to worship in the temple, but if you haven't surrendered to God through a guru and done Samashrayanam, that's the most important thing, and you haven't done that. So do that, as well as doing the other if you want to worship in a temple. So most people don't want to be a temple priest. If you want to be a temple priest, there's years of learning, right? Studying Pancharatra and whatever it is. If you just want to be a Vaishnava and attain prema or moksha, you know, the goal of Vaishnavism, the eternal service of the Supreme Lord, you know, then that is simple. That's the way. It's not simple, but it's there. There's a simple process, and it begins with initiation. It begins with first of all, it begins with understanding, and then accepting within the heart, and then the external is the formal initiation ceremony, like that, and then more things can go on after that. Okay, so I think we covered quite a lot of ground there. and also a lot of technical things, a few technical things. I hope that we don't focus too much on the technical issues, but if people want to go into the technical issues in more detail, we can, and there are other books to consult, which, as is said here in the last verse, Gopal Bhatta says that I could make this book a lot bigger by talking about all the different ways of making the mandap and the kunda and everything, but I won't. I'll make it shorter so I can get to the actual point of the initiation, which is going to come up where the mantra is given. So we're going to now that we learned about the time and the place and the guru and the mantra, we're now going to learn about the actual procedure. That'll be coming up next. So we'll pick this up again next time. Thank you very much. There's no other questions or comments. I think we'll just leave it here.